Ladies, gentlemen, the situation is serious. It is very, very tense in France and Great Britain. These two, who have positioned themselves as leaders to act against Russia, these two who have stood up to push Zelensky into making mistakes. Apparently, the situation has changed today. France and London have just made a spectacular turnaround, shamelessly, without any embarrassment at all. That is to say, one wonders, where has the shame gone? Where did it go? They don't have that in their nature. Yes, the famous London summit, which is considered the last summit for America in the context of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, is the summit of the last chance. The Americans have been uncompromising on this. So, is it in relation to this that France and London have just made a spectacular turnaround? We are asking ourselves a lot of questions. But what is the nature of this turnaround? This is what we are going to discuss in this video conference, which I ask you to share as much as possible. Share this video conference as much as possible. Give it a lot of likes. Share. Our friends in Africa need to discover the true face of these people. That is to say, if we do not know these people, we cannot make the best decisions for us Africans. And especially since among you, there are many who will access leadership positions of responsibility in their country. So we need to understand how the world works. That's why it's important to share the video conference. According to official information, the French and British authorities are open to a scenario in which Ukraine would agree to recognize the loss of certain territories officially integrated into the Russian Federation. They are ready to acknowledge it. They are prepared for this scenario, where Ukraine recognizes certain territories, such as Crimea. But they say, they go further, in the peace plan that the United States of America has proposed. There is the recognition of territories before 2022, including Crimea from 2014. To show their good faith, to demonstrate that they, in any case for the moment, have good faith, it's like what we see. According to what is said, we will see a little further if they change their mind a bit. But they say they are ready to accept that Ukraine officially recognizes territories officially integrated into the Russian Federation. That means Crimea in the first position. But at this level, there is a nuance. We will see in their statements shortly. If they don't raise the nuance, there is a real nuance. Territories officially integrated into the Russian Federation include Crimea, Mariupol, and others. But the territories acquired since 2022 are not officially recorded as part of the Russian Federation. Here is the question that remains. But already, what needs to be recalled are these two states of Europe, of the West, that were firmly opposed to the loss of territories by Ukraine. Firmly opposed. They opposed it vehemently. Seeing these two rogue states, it now say they are ready for such a scenario. One wonders, isn't it, aren't these the results of American pressure or position? Someone might say to me, but Mr. Tine, there aren't even questions at this level. It's America that commands them. Let's delve deeper. Let's go into the depths. They say they are ready to accept this as part of a potential conflict resolution agreement. So, in case there is a conflict resolution, there is an agreement since the last chance summit taking place in London. At the moment we are speaking, will be to sign an agreement. In any case, it's to dot all the I's. Perhaps what will remain is Russia's signature. So, they are ready to accept. 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 So, they are ready to accept The information is relayed by the Wall Street Journal, which also cites diplomatic sources from these two countries. According to diplomatic sources from these two countries, namely the United Kingdom and France, London and Paris believe that in exchange for such recognition, Ukraine must obtain reliable future security guarantees, as well as strong economic support for its development. We understand the economic support for its development, even at this level. Look, they say they accept. Why? What is the reason? So that Ukraine can have a reliable security guarantee. Because if they persist, they have understood, as the Ivorians say, the eyes know which luggage is heavy. If they persist in wanting to take back Crimea and Mariupol and others from Russia, even if they have an agreement, this agreement will never prosper. And Russia will defend, come what may, its own territories. But is that the position of France, of Great Britain, which is a position that stems from the main position of the United States of America? But is Zelensky ready to accept that? Well, since Zelensky is in their hands, they manipulate him as they see fit. Maybe he will accept. Otherwise, Ukraine has been firmly opposed to the recognition of this territory called Crimea. That's the reason why Ukraine recently blew up the Crimean bridge. You saw that, right? So, it will be surprising. But what remains clear is that both have already somewhat made their mea culpa by making this spectacular turnaround. So, however, here, France and the United Kingdom prefer that Kiev settles for a de facto recognition of the loss of territories without formalizing the current situation. This is where they want to bring in their intelligence. They want to sweet talk Vladimir Putin. Verbal recognition, verbal recognizing in practice, without formalizing, that is, without putting it in writing in the agreements. Now, it is from this point that Putin will not be in agreement. Since Putin has always insisted, if you have seen that Putin requested the establishment of a government of civil transition in Ukraine, Putin wants the agreement that will be reached, and within which agreement it will be mentioned that the territories belong to Russia. It would not be necessary that, when it is signed, another president who will come, which will be legitimate, that this president calls into question. This is why Putin has always insisted on the non-legality and non-legitimacy of Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, both countries pretend to support the idea of the United States of America, but they bring out their own little idea on the side, which might seem negligible, but which will inherently hinder the signing of the agreement. Because Russia will never agree to sign, as long as these territories are not recognized for Russia. That's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, the headline of the news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I'll be back with you shortly. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.